welcome to another episode of Spilling Ink, the talk show that takes you behind the book and lets you get to know the authors and industry professionals in the indie publishing industry. Today I've got two guests with me. I've got Arroyo and H.D. Gordon here to talk about their books. And of course, my co-host, as always, David Jones. Say hi, David.
Hi.
All right, so before the show went on, we flipped a coin, and ER is my lucky first guest to talk about her books. Go ahead, ER, take it away.
Hello, I'm ER Arroyo, and I am the author of the Antia's Ascending series. It is a young adult dystopian series featuring 2 novels, Sovereign and The Offering, and 3 companion short stories. And I also, edited and put together a project called Prep for Doom, which was an anthology from Band of Dystopia. And I was featured in the Doomsday Chronicles from the Future Chronicles series by Samuel Bronson.
Awesome. We're going to get into more of that Prep for Doom here in a little bit, but let's let HD introduce herself and her wonderful books.
Hi, everyone. I'm H.D. Gordon. I'm the author of both young adult and adult fiction. I'm working on my 15th novel currently, which will be the 4th book in the Arroyo and H.D series. First thing you see behind me. I'm probably best known for my Alexa Montgomery saga, which is the 4 books up there.
They are awesome looking book covers, by the way. We're going to talk about that in a second, too, because you've got some really amazing cover art.
Thank you.
All right, but let's start off with ER. You talked about Prep for Doom, and you talked about Band of Dystopian Authors. Now, you're one of the founding members of the Band of Dystopian Authors and Fans Facebook group, and that also has an offshoot just for authors as well. Can you tell me, how did that come about? How did you start that up? I mean, it's got an awesome following. Tell me more about it.
It was born out of necessity in that I had just released my 2nd novel, and I was looking for the right way to approach social media with it. Because with my first novel, I hadn't done as much in the way of, actual use of social media for the sake of marketing. And so a friend of mine had said, hey, groups are all the rage. Find a group that is dedicated to your type of fiction, that's dedicated to dystopian. And I was like, there's not one, which at the time was true. Now there are a few more. So at the time, there was nothing that was just for this niche of fiction. So I approached Sheer Papworth, who had become a friend after she had reviewed Malthus' novel and then had subsequently beta read the 2nd novel. And I just said, hey, would you be interested in helping me start a group that focuses on dystopian, apocalyptic, and post-apocalyptic fiction? And she was ecstatically in favor of the idea. And so we started the group. We threw everyone that we knew in it. And then she just started sending friend requests to authors, like creeper level, like friend you, ask you to join our group kind of thing. Pretty quickly, we had, 100 people in the group, and it just grew and grew and grew to now, 2 years later, we have nearly 3,700 members, and I would estimate 250 to 300 of those are authors.
And it's an active group, too. Anytime that I pop into that group, there's always something going on. There's parties for new releases. There's a lot of chat going on. It's not one of those groups where you just see people, drive by and post their links. There's actual conversation going on. There's members that you see in there daily, which is surprising. It's a very unique take. You guys did a really good thing with it. And then with the Prep for Doom, you guys turned that into an anthology. How's that done?
Prep for Doom, we had people who love being a part of Band of Dystopian often come to us with ideas. We had heard several times, have you guys thought about doing an anthology? And we were like, that's huge. That's a big undertaking. I'm not sure if we're ready. And we finally got to a place where we were like, okay, I'm curious. Let's just kind of put some feelers out. We created, like you said, an offshoot group just for authors. And we added to that group members who were active in Band of Dystopian. And then we just pitched the idea of doing an anthology that was integrated and was set in the same world and based on the same storyline. And then people kind of brainstormed with us until we came up with the plot we wanted to go with. I put out a document that put out details of the incident and like dates and times, specific symptoms, things, everything that they would need to base their stories on. And then they just sent us in submissions, and we chose we wound up with 21 stories, and we kind of weave them together a little bit in addition to what was already coherent about them. We weave them together more in editing once we had signed contracts and things like that, so that a lot of people have commented on it feels like I just read a novel rather than 21 stories. And that was our goal.
It was really well done. I mean, I thought it was such a unique take. I wanted to submit to it at the time, but I had been bogged down with finishing the Chronicles. I couldn't find the time to add in another story, and I was really, really sad I missed out on it, because it looked like, from what I could see from the sidelines, just a fun project. And like I said before, the group is such an active, open group. Just to be a part of that would be awesome. And I'm guessing from your standpoint, being in it was a great experience as well.
It was, and it was also kind of an honor, just because I don't think of myself as like any like big deal or whatever, but these authors, they trusted me with putting this thing together and the changes that I needed to make, and they were just like bought in to the project, and it was really, really, I'm grateful that they had that faith in the process and in me, to pull that off. So it was great.
Are you in the Band of Dystopian Authors group, and which book series of yours falls into that dystopian genre?
Yes, I am in that group. It's an awesome group. Like you said, very active, and that's kind of a rare thing nowadays. And the book that I joined it for it's called The Company Store, and Earth is dying because of climate change. So it painted a different landscape, sort of, and it's about a young gangster who lives in the slums, and he kind of has to fight for his life. I love the group. I think it's amazing, and they've done a great job.
Yeah, they're definitely one of the most active groups, and that makes it worthwhile to go to. A lot of groups are just drive-by link groups, and that's pretty much it. You pop in,
most of them,
and you pop out. Nobody sees them. You don't know if anybody really sees them. There's no interaction. It's not really social. So it's kind of refreshing when you go into the Band of Dystopian group. Every day when you pop in, there's, a contest going. There's a new release being promoted. There's people posting just randomness. I know Cheer likes to pop a lot of those this or that or yes or no, and it's like zombies and stuff.
Cheer is amazing. There's no way that BOD would be what it is if it weren't for her. If I had tried to do this on my own, there's no telling how quickly it would have gone down the flames. She's so creative, and she's so good at engaging people, keeping the party going. I'm so grateful for her, but she is a lot of what's behind everything that you guys love about the group.
She's so wonderful to talk to, too. I mean, anytime I've messaged her for anything, she's pleasant, she's happy, she's friendly, she's, hey, how can I help you? What do you need? She's very complimentary, too. I mean, she's read a bunch of my books. She's always told me what she's thought of them. She's always helped me to promote them. I know for a while there, she was doing the offering up copies for review, the read and review kind of program, which was really nice. It's hard to get reviews, so when somebody does something like that and takes the time to organize it, I mean, that's amazing.
She loves indie authors and loves to support what we do. She's a very insanely fast reader, and she just consumes a lot of books. And she's so passionate about helping authors out and is not looking for anything in return in the way of gain. And she's just so giving and generous as a person. I could just gush all day, but she's great. She's great.
She is a sweetheart. She really is. That actually brings up another topic, the reviews. How do you guys go about getting reviews for your books? I mean, it's not as easy as it used to be when you would send a message to bloggers and say, hey, would you like to review this book? Most bloggers today either belong to a service that already has books allocated to them, or they're backed up for, other reasons. They've already got a list a mile long. So how do you get reviews these days?
Well, you have to be creative with that, just like anything else. So there's several ways. Goodreads is still a resource that a lot of authors don't use for various reasons. There are groups where you can go, and there are read-to-review programs, and you sign up. And if you've made friends with some of the people who run those groups, it's easier to get in. On social media, just making friends with people. Instagram, I've gone and just I'll search a keyword like paranormal ebook, and I've gotten lots of views from just messaging young bloggers on Instagram. Follow them, get to know them, like their stuff, and then so Instagram, Goodreads, Facebook, you really just have to look for them everywhere. Keep a track of who you've distributed them to, when you distribute them, how you distributed them. I recommend using InstaFreebie because they automatically put DRM on the file. All you have to do is check a box. And though DRM, digital rights management, can be stripped by somebody who knows how, it's still better to have it than not have it. And you can track the downloads and everything else. And that way you weed out the pirates. And like everything else, I think it's a slow going process. So I've been doing this for like 4 years, and I think I have like 50 reviewers I can go straight to. And even then, even though I know they've read my books, they like the books, I'm not always guaranteed to get 20 on release day or whatever. But definitely reach out in all kinds of different manners. If you go to Goodreads and you look up some of the paranormal groups or young adult groups, or fantasy groups, which I think all of us here write some version of those things. They're called R2R, and that's like what the abbreviation is. So if you search it in the groups, you know how you can search for certain keywords. A lot of those come up, and there's only a few of them, but they really help because all you do is tell them how many copies you want to provide. I usually say as many as people will take, and they distribute them for you, and they set a date. It takes a couple months to get in, but those groups on Goodreads are clutch. And I mean, people overlook them a lot, but this is a concentrated form of social media that is dedicated solely to books and people who want to read books. So that Goodreads has always been a resource for me in getting reviews.
See, now that's awesome because I admittedly avoid Goodreads because I don't understand the platform. It's hard to figure out. It's huge. It's a massive site. But you're right. Avoiding it is not a good thing.
I have to tell you, I was active in Goodreads when I first started doing this back in 2011. Goodreads was where I met the first strangers who bought my books, the first strangers who reviewed my books. And at this time, they were full of editing errors, and everybody was so kind about it. I started getting reviews from those groups and just going into the groups and saying they have threads where you can ask for reviews, or you can take the time and make the friends, which we all know with social media works the best. That helped me sell. I mean, I think I sold 22 copies the first month I released. And then through those groups, I gave out 100 free of the first book. By the time the third book came out in the series, maybe 4 or 5 months later, I had gone from 22 copies sold to 10,000 copies sold of that series. And I, honest to God, think Goodreads played an enormous... Honestly, we spend all this time on Facebook. Goodreads, not only is it concentrated readers, it's owned by Amazon now. And we all know Amazon's king, however you feel about it. That's the truth. So that is a resource that I find authors seriously looking over. Oh, drama? Really? So you're on Facebook trying to avoid drama? No, you need to go back to Goodreads. Oh, really? So you jump ship to Facebook? How did that work out for you? No, this is where they are. This is where they have always been. That's all they do. It's a social media platform where you log into a group and talk about books and talk about authors and talk about series and interact with other readers. These are people who are reading, and that's your target audience. So, and then there's the groups are concentrated in a way that they're labeled for whatever genre you could possibly be writing in. That is, to me, a huge resource.
Wow. Okay.
You can see, too, I remember watching the progress. Like, I'm watching with this series, and for book 1, it's like 500 people have marked it to read. Does that mean that they're going to read it? No, but it means it's on their radar. And we all know it takes a few times. When you buy a book, you've usually seen it a few times. It's usually not the first time, right? It's like, I've seen it. And Goodreads is where every review is shared in a timeline. Every comment is shared in a timeline. Every star rating is shared in a timeline. Every author is on there. All my books collectively, I think, have almost 8,000 ratings or reviews.
Wow.
It's like, that's where you want to be. This is 5 years. I mean, there are people who have hundreds of thousands. I mean, what I'm saying is that even if you're starting the way I did, Goodreads was my home. I spent time there. I built a group. David Estes, do you guys know who that is?
Yeah.
He runs a very successful group, which has been a big part of success. Also has like 3,000-4,000 members. So that means that's a group of people you can just send a direct message to, just like if you were building a mailing list, which I think is the most effective form of marketing today. But don't overlook Goodreads. That's where we should be spending our time. We're being foolish on Facebook. I know it. I still do it, but it's foolish.
Wow. Very useful advice. Right after this is done, I'm probably going to go and check that out. So thank you.
And know that it's a time, it's like anything else. It takes time to build your social media platform. It takes time to build the readership. It takes time to build your ARC reader list. I mean, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, right? So sell more books, write more books, reach more readers, right?
Exactly.
Here through Goodreads.
Oh, did you see? And look how amazing that turned out. Goodreads, I'm telling you.
Yes, I had started a giveaway for paperback of my first novel, and she entered the giveaway, but then she went ahead and got the ebook anyway and reviewed it, And then, I don't know, at some point after that, I asked her to beta read the second book, which she did, and a friendship was born.
See, now that's an awesome story. Because look what happened from meeting her. You guys created an awesome group.
Everybody I met in the beginning came from Goodreads. I absolutely believe it, because I'm telling you, that's where readers that I've had for years that I know by first name, because they're like, I cried when a stranger brought my book, they came from Goodreads. So it really, I would think of like a regimen of like, if we could cut our Facebook time and instead spend those however many minutes a day, probably an embarrassing amount, on Goodreads rather than Facebook, I really think would help a lot of our careers.
Okay, so from your perspective, Goodreads is king. What's your thought on it? Are you a Facebook? Are you a Twitter? Instagram? What's your side of it?
I fail miserably in every avenue except probably Facebook, and I even hesitate there just because I've been so consumed with Band of Dystopian within that audience. I have kind of a profile-ish among them as being moderator for Band of Dystopian, that I try not to abuse it for my own sake very often, and I probably should more. So I really spend more time being about the organization than being about my books. But I've just recently started a fan group that's aside from Band of Dystopian, that's just for people who want to follow my career, because I finished my dystopian series. I want them to be able to follow me and connect with me, and Facebook is super easy for me to stay connected with people. So I've got some people there, and then also, like she said, building a list and having that newsletter list in pocket so I can send things out for that. Goodreads is something that I check regularly, but it's something that was drowned out a while ago with my time consumption. So I'm not using it the way that HD is, but I might now.
Right, yeah, she spoke very passionately about that, man. And yeah, I'm on board.
I think we all need to go take another look at Goodreads. You'd also mentioned something too about mailing lists. Is quite the growing trend, is people with their newsletters and these massive mailing lists. With all of these authors now building such big mailing lists, are we now creating just more spam?
It depends on how you use it. For example, for me, I'm not going to send a newsletter if I have nothing to say or something's not going on. Sometimes I'm just trying to let people be aware that I'm still here, and that even though I haven't put anything out recently, I'm still writing, but I try my best to reserve that for when I have something to offer. Whenever we were doing writing prompts with BOD, one time I wrote one, and so I sent my story to my newsletter crew and just be like, hey, this is what's going on, this is what I'm working on, but, while you wait, here's a free short story or something like that. So it's giving some kind of value to the reader, but also keeping in mind that a newsletter is unlike any social media, because at the end of the day, no matter what a platform does, you own your mailing list. That's one surefire way that you can reach your readers, no matter what Facebook's algorithms are doing or whatever's going on in the Twitter feed that you're getting drowned in. An email is the only way that you can guarantee a connection between you and your reader if they're on that list. That doesn't mean they're going to open it, but that's a better shot than putting a post out into nothingness and hoping it lands.
Right. People are flooding Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr, all these different social media platforms. So it's kind of a miracle that anything that anyone posts actually gets seen these days. I have my website, all my social media stuff. I have been hesitating to do a mailing list, but for just talking to you guys in the last 20 minutes, I'm totally going to check out Goodreads more thoroughly. And we're going to booth at Palm Springs Comic Con. I'm totally going to make a mailing list just to see what it does. Some of the best mailing lists that I'm on, all they do is list the most crucial information. I'll be here. I did this. And it's not pages and pages of information. It's very simple. And I think that's the most effective as far as a mailing list is concerned. Just keep it streamlined.
I've gotten lucky lately. I've built my list pretty big because I've had the help of some other brilliant authors. That's the thing about the whole game. It's really just learning from each other, which is why I don't know why there's so much hate, because we really just share and take from each other, and it's good for all of us. Today, right now, a mailing list is the most effective and cost-effective marketing that you can do, provided that you collect the right subscribers. And like she said, mail sparingly. I think a good rule of thumb is maybe once a month. And when I do those things, I either try to have a free offer. That's why, like I told you before, that you can sign up for my mailing list right now and get 2 books. I know David Estes, who I stole this from a while, gives 4 free books. He calls it a David Estes starter library just for signing up for the email.
Wow.
So there's incentive, and then also you're getting this free product from somebody, so you feel a little bit more crappy if you unsubscribe. Think of BookBub. Here's an example. The reason BookBub is what it is and why it's successful and why it can charge $500 a pop is because it has hundreds of thousands of email subscribers, not just hundreds of thousands, but they also know what genres these subscribers prefer. So they can send out targeted, direct emails. It's definitely something you should be building. It's definitely something I should have built long ago. And a good way to do it that a lot of people don't think of is with giveaways that you combine with other authors. I just recently did a $2,000 giveaway with 20 other authors. We all donated $100, and that netted me personally, about 13,000 emails from that $2,000 giveaway. We all donated books. Wow. So there's several creative ways to do it, and it is without a doubt, like, I've watched the sales rise.
What mailing list subscription service are you using?
Because I actually had to change. I was with MailChimp, and then they wanted like $240 for that amount per month, for just to hold that many subscribers. So I went and asked my other author friends on Facebook what a good subscriber service was, and MailerLite, without a doubt, MailerLite is the most cost-effective and easy-to-use interface. So I would choose it over Mad Mimi. I would choose it over MailChimp. It's the way to go, for sure.
Alexia had just mentioned that one to me. So, yeah, that's on my radar right now.
It might have been her who told me. Yes, that's the one. That's it, for sure.
ER, do you have a mail service you're using right now?
I am still using MailChimp. So I'm not in danger of paying anything.
At 2,000 subscribers is when MailChimp starts charging you.
Right.
Damn.
Yeah, I think I'm sitting at like 1,500 right now, so I'm still good. But yeah, eventually I'm going to have to bump up.
I have none of that. I am brand new to everything. So for me, this is just exploding my brain here a little.
Now, David, with you only having 1 book out, you wouldn't be able to offer a free book with subscription, but you might be able to offer some chapters as a, incentive for people. Write more books.
Right.
Yes, always.
This has been really, really good information, especially about the newsletters. I want to pause for a minute and tell you guys that if you're watching this video, you're already entered in for a chance to win one of our giveaways this week. We'll give you some more details about that at the end of the show. Let's talk about cover art. What draws you into the cover? How do you go into creating the covers for your books? How much input do you have on your cover art?
I have been through a process with my cover art. On my very first cover, it was me against a black blanket with a sword, so it was terrible. But at this point, I go through a company that does everything really amazingly, and they're called Deranged Doctor Designs, and they're responsible for these 2 and some other really great ones I have. And up here, this is Regina Wamba, which I'm sure both of you know that name. But the best experience I've had has been with this company. And for cover art, that's step 1 in book buying. I believe there are 3 steps that a reader goes through when they're considering buying a book. So if you think about when you walk into a bookstore, the first thing that draws you in, number 1, is the cover. And then you usually flip it to the back and read the blurb. That's number 2. And 3 is the sample, where you thumb through and see if you actually like the writing style. But cover is number 1. So if you don't draw them in with the cover, you're really missing out on a lot of readers. And to me, the best advice when deciding how to choose a cover is to go to Amazon and go look at the best sellers in your category. Now, that means you need to know what your genre is. If it's fantasy, it's fantasy. If it's paranormal, it's paranormal. You got to know the difference. And you need to look at what books are in that top 100 in that category and see what similarities their covers have. Look at the keywords they have. In paranormal, there's going to be a lot of blood. There's going to be a lot of fang, alpha. So really examining the other covers that are selling well in your genre is a big step to knowing what your reader wants and what they're actually purchasing when they're looking for that type of book. And then I recommend going with a company because it's so easy and awesome.
Now, how much input do you have personally working with a company on how your cover looks from start to finish?
With most cover artists, and this is not just with company, it's even with independent ones, they send you this form that you fill out, which a lot of times helps me actually just write the synopsis. And so it asks you the title, and it asks you what the main characters look like, and it asks you what the basic premise of the story is, and you can, any extra notes you might want to have, you give. finding a cover artist who is truly an artist in that sense. As we are writers, like the words are us. But to me, if you find a really good one, go ahead and let their vision run. Like, let them go with it, because they are the visual artists, and it's so different from writing a book. A lot of us like to have a lot of input. In reality, most times authors don't, especially if you're with a traditional publishing house. And the reason is because that is not your field of expertise. Unless you were a graphic designer, somebody who marketed things that were aesthetically pleasing, then that is not what we should be doing. So I don't have a lot of input. I give them a premise. I like to make the premise as clear and concise as possible. Like, this is a superhero story. I feel like that is pretty evident in those things. It's a set in a city. So you give them the setting, you give them the characters, you give them the set synopsis. If you've chosen wisely, they give you back something that's usually pretty awesome. And if they don't, then you say go back to the drawing board. Your job is to know what it is when you see it, and you know that it's going to work when you see it by going and stalking the other books that are selling well in that category.
Now, that said, have you ever been given a cover mock-up where you're like, no, oh my God, no, this is completely wrong?
Yeah, definitely. And in the beginning, this is why I recommend not making friends with people who you're going to contract out to. Now, there are a lot of people that I love and respect who are my great friends, and I know they do good work, but it complicates things. And if you want to make money selling books, you have to treat this like a business. This is one of the faces of your business. These are the faces of your business. This is, again, the most important step. If the reader doesn't get past there, especially nowadays, when what we do is we scroll and the images we see are thumbprint sized, it's so important that, yes, I have said, in fact, just recently with this company, this has only happened once in 5 books that they've done for me, 6 books that they've done for me. I said, this is not it. I know you guys you can be respectful. I know that you can do better, which is why I'm asking you to go back and do better. That's the same thing that our editors say to us. This scene could be stronger. You know what I mean? And if you're professional, then you take that for what it is, that you can go back and do better, and you do that. So yes, I have, but it's also why I recommend not befriending on a personal level those people that you contract.
Makes sense. Now, on the flip side, ER, what's your process? How do you work with it? How do you come up with a cover you like?
My process is quite a lot different, but my process will also change with future series. The first series, Sovereign, the first novel, I was trying to get crafty, and so I had a friend who I had made friends with through the local acting community, and she had done some reading for me on a script project, and she was also a model and a really good actress, and so I asked her if she would model for the cover of my novel, and I found her who was also a friend of mine, and we just went and shot local, and this is when I lived in Tulsa. And so we just shot in downtown Tulsa. So yeah, I used a local model actress, and I used a local photographer. And then I traded her out with some services. So I didn't pay her. I just was like, I'll come and I'll do some things for you on her photo shoots. I'm a cosmetologist, so I exchanged hair and makeup on some of her projects in exchange for her modeling on my cover for free.
Oh, that's very clever.
So, and then the photographer designed the cover as well, and that was his first cover that he'd ever designed. I used the same model, and then I used a different photographer, but he was also local and a friend, and Naj Designs, and I can give you the link. She is from Bahrain, and she does incredible work. I hired her to kind of soup up what had been done already. She put in a new background and kind of finished the cover for me, and then she ended up designing the 3 short story covers as well. I had hired her for a few things like odd jobs, like bookmarks and things like that, and promotional stuff from the first book. But once I got to work with her on a novel, I kind of knew like this is going to be a lasting relationship. So I'm really excited about future projects because I can hire her and it's not a halfway already done project, so that I'll be able to build that kind of relationship that HD was talking about, where you can let her do what she does. I'm really excited about that because she does great work.
One thing you mentioned that is absolutely true with stock photography, trying to find a strong female that doesn't look like a porn star is one of the hardest things. In the Chronicles series, trying to find a girl with a sword who wasn't like half naked, it was just ridiculous. And I mean, I scoured the internet for hours and hours and hours trying to find works that would work as a cover. And at one point, I even sent an image to my cover artist and said, "Can you just put some clothes on her?" So I totally understand what you're saying there. And yeah, going to a photographer to have them shoot some shots for you is perfect. That's a great way to get a unique look as well.
It's such a nice personal touch to something that writing a story is already so personal. It's so much time and so much effort. So that's great that you can really make it yours. I mean, it's also great with HD to be able to make it more of a business thing because you get exactly what you want.
And there's a lot of up-and-coming cover artists that do that. They have their, backlist of what they've done before, and you tell them, hey, this is what I'm looking for, and they come up with something genre-specific, and it's great. It makes life easy.
Well, it's like HD mentioned, there's certain flavors to the different genres, and you see it immediately. Like those 99-cent trashy romance stories always have the big muscle man. He's topless and shit. I mean, you know what I'm talking about. You already know what I'm talking about.
I know. Yes.
But I mean, it's true. There's a certain look for every genre.
There are models out there that bank on that. I think romancenovelcovers.com, I might be saying the website wrong, is Jimmy Thompson's website. He's a model. He's like a Fabio-esque, big, burly guy, and he's got a business out of all the cover art that he's been on. And now he sells his own shots for that use.
And he's smart for doing so. There you go.
Yep. You have to know your genre. You definitely have to go with what's expected. I do like seeing the two different sides, though. The straight down to business aspect versus the personal touch. And they both work because both of your covers are gorgeous.
Amazing. Yes, I love all of your guys' covers.
And that's really, it is like you said, HD, it's the first thing that people see is that cover. Whether it's scrolling through Amazon shelves or whether you walk into a bookstore. I've bought a book strictly based on the cover. Didn't even read the synopsis. I was like, this is gorgeous. It's going on my shelf. And that was it.
I think most people are guilty of that. We're visual creatures. I mean, what do you expect?
It is. It's like a piece of artwork. We buy art just to look at on our walls. Sometimes we buy books just to make our shelves look pretty.
Well, what about you, Katie? What's your approach? You had your old covers. What is your approach? Because you're updating all of your old ones.
Yeah, I am. I'm in the process. I don't know if you can see in the background there. The poster hanging on the wall is actually the original artwork for Carpe Noctem, which is the first book in my Immortalis series. And this is the updated cover.
I like it.
So quite a bit of difference. I don't know if you can see the two from one to the other. This is just updating it to what is the current trend in urban fantasy right now. In that first one, I did go with a company and I took what they sent me. I said here, it's a female in Vegas, slightly vulnerable, just coming into her own, blah, 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 summary synopsis. And that's what they gave me. And it was popular when it first came out. It was a good cover. People liked it. But as years have gone on, I've been told by quite a few people that the covers needed updating.
My approach for the Rainblade was I know an artist whose work I've admired for years. So I finally had an opportunity to work with her. I basically told her what I wanted. And she sent me some sketches, and then she gave me a beautiful watercolor painting. It's very special. It means a lot to me because it's somebody whose work I love, and then it was an opportunity to actually work with her. And her name is Lorraine Hara-Yoles. She does great work.
It's cool, though, that's actually like a painting that she gave you that you turned into cover art.
I bought the original off of her.
Okay.
Yeah, because I loved it so much. I mean, it makes sense. And she's like, I would only sell it to you.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So that's a completely different take compared to the rest of us. We've all got different approaches on this. Cover art comes at different prices, too. What do you feel like is the average price to pay for a cover? It's a tricky one. It seems like for an ebook with wrap cover for the print, you're looking on average about $250 for cover art. And that's kind of the midline. There's lower, there's higher, but that seems to be the midline that I've been seeing.
So I've done, with all 15 books, like I said, I was on my own cover, so I went to free. I made my own covers, that was free. I paid for stock art. I worked with Regina. I would say $250 is a good midline. I'd say that's about what my company charges, and you get a whole bunch of other graphics too. And it's really, but I have friends who have gotten great art for $50. To me, it's the one thing, along with editing, that is worth whatever you have to pay to get what's going to really satisfy you and your reader. Really, I think it should satisfy your reader more than it should satisfy you. But it took me a lot of books to let go of that creative hold on it to tell myself that these people who create not just art but books for a living know more than I know about this. So it took me a while, and I think $250 is a fair price. I think $500 and up is ridiculous. Now, if you're paying again for original images from a photographer and you're paying for a whole photo shoot, those things can get very expensive, but they're unnecessary when you can find great art for much less. So I would not pay that amount, but I agree that $250 is the baseline, and the investment is worth it. It's worth it.
When you go through a company, they create your cover art, but do they provide you high-res images to, for example, print off posters, bookmarks, whatever else you want to market it with?
Of course, and the ones that I use have a whole package, so they give me everything from my Facebook banner to my Twitter to my profile picture to a blog header. All of that is included in the price along with the full wrap and the ebook, and there are lots of companies that do that. All of these are high-res. Though they use some stock images, a clever artist, and this is something I learned not too long ago, really, for how long I've been doing this, is they can make those stock images look original. Nobody else you will see with these covers ever. A lot of them you see, and you'll be like, oh, I've seen that stock photo used on this cover and that cover and that cover. With a clever artist who really knows what they're doing, nobody will be able to tell.
Right, because they'll adjust it, incorporate it, fuse it together.
All sorts of things. Like Katie said, constant improvement to me. I think a lot of times we bang our head against the wall saying, how do I sell more books? How do I sell more books? How do I sell more books? And the real question you should be asking yourself is, how do I make my product better and better and better? The book that you would have bought from me 5 years ago is completely different from the book that you would go buy now. Same book, edited better covers, better formatting. And that's what's so great about the digital age, is that constant updates are easy to make.
That's
so you
great.
should always be striving towards constant improvement. Stop asking yourself, how do I sell more books? And say, how do I give my reader a better experience? And that's everything from having links in the back of your book, or the first few chapters of the next book in the back of your book. Go directly to your social media, or go directly to your newsletter sign up in the book. So all of this, the whole experience, when they open that book, they know what they're going to get from you. I know I'm going to get good editing. I know the formatting is going to be on point. I know that the cover is beautiful. So always be thinking about that experience, and the cover is definitely part of that, definitely worth the investment.
Wow, it makes it sound like such a live product, because it evolves with you.
I mean,
It absolutely is.
It absolutely is, and it's always, again, the constant improvement. To me, that's my thing. If somebody tells me, I see a lot of authors that go on, they'll be like, oh, people are complaining about editings and reviews. I don't have the money to pay another editor. Yeah, but you know what? You read a lot, and you can go back and look for errors. And when people send you messages, you don't have to be rude to them. Say, if they point out the errors, go back and fix them. Quit being lazy. People are paying for this product. Make it better, make it better, make it better.
Always.
All the time.
Yeah, my philosophy is, do your very best work, no matter what. You put in all that time and effort, you really need to make it count.
Absolutely.
Right.
ER, let's get your take on this as well. What's your average cost for cover art, do you think?
I love local and cheap, so I've paid as little as $50 plus free hair and makeup, and I've paid probably no more than one something. I can see upwards, and I know people who've paid a lot more. For future projects, I would probably be willing to pay a little, but I keep the space in my budget for the editing, because that's so important to me.
Editing, definitely. But bartering services is a form of paying as well. It's not free when you barter services. Your time is worth something too. So you're saying, I might have paid $50 for the cover, but I also did hair and makeup. That's a service you're offering them. That's worth something too.
It can be really costly. This past year, I set a goal. I wanted to go to 10 book either conventions or conferences or whatever, and I actually went to like 14 of them. I spent a lot of money, and I met a lot of wonderful authors that I loved meeting and had great experiences. However, I saw zero reflection in my online sales, which is the bulk of where I make my money. Unless you have a lot of money, that is a silly place to invest. You can develop relationships online for a lot less. You can advertise online for a lot less. And in truth, as indies, what you're going to be focusing on is ebook sales. You're almost never going to make the money back if you paid to travel, if you paid to stay in a hotel. I would go, and there would be a lot of authors who would be very disappointed because you sit there for hours and hours and hours and you don't sell that many books, and they wanted to go and make money doing this. But I would recommend maybe picking one if you're going to do that. Unless you got the money laying around from a business standpoint, it doesn't make that much sense financially.
Right. and you're primarily there, like the primary benefit of being there is networking.
Right, meeting people face to face.
Yeah. So you're not really selling books. I've gone exhibiting and I've gone not exhibiting. So, and I like both ways, really.
Okay, so so mostly for the networking, which is what Jason and Kendra said.
One thing I would love to say too, you mentioned a lot of authors go and then they kind of bemoan the fact that they don't make a lot of money doing this. I've been to a lot of events and I've seen authors just kind of sit there. They sit at their table and they wait for people to come to them. My philosophy whenever I do an event is I am no special little flower that people are coming to see. If I want to reach a new reader, I have got to literally reach across that table and get them to come over. So when I do events, I liken it to being a carnival barker. I'm like, hey, free bookmarks. What do you like to read? You know, I try and engage and bring people to the table. And I do see a better return on investment. I may not make my travel costs, but I usually break even on the booth.
I usually can make the booth back, but when you're traveling a lot, if there's travel at all and an overnight stay at all, so I do a lot of local. I'll go within an hour so that I can stay at my home. I'm not paying for a hotel. I'm not paying a lot for gas. And I can usually make back whatever the booth is. See, do you ever see a reflection in your online sales after doing one of those events? I mean, and I get that. You have to be a salesperson and you have to grab them for sure. It's always, and what do you like to read is the best icebreaker I found. That's like grab people in. You got to be smiling. You turn into a salesman. And without a doubt, the biggest gain is meeting the other authors who you become friends with, and then you share your networks and everything else. But like you said, there will always be the authors who, I spent this to come here and I didn't make any money back. And it's like that can't be your only goal for those things. You've got to go into it knowing I'm going to make friends. I know some people who say they do well and they make a lot of money, and I have a hard time believing it.
You just have to go in without expectation. I think you just have to accept that you're going to go and have fun hanging out with people all weekend long.
Yeah. I could also, just because I know some people who do really well at conferences, and it seems like the trend there that is lending to their success is the fact that they go to the same con year after year after year. And so by the time, they're on year 3 or 4, tons of people who go to that same con know who they are.
Oh, they expect to see them.
Yeah, and if they write a lot of books, so that by the time they're at the con again next year, they've released 4 more books and they sell really well, and that's because they've built that following with that con and the people that go there, and they write a lot of books. So
that's a great insight.
That's why I think a big deal out of exhibiting is because it's been 2 years since I've released a novel, because I've been working on anthologies and then short stories, and so now that I'm back in the novel writing seat, I feel like I'm starting over a little bit because that series is done. Got to kind of reinvent myself and figure out how to do long fiction again.
Last episode, we were talking about being disciplined. What do you find is the most effective way for you guys to just hammer out tons of pages?
For me, it's plotting. I'm a very intense pre-plotter, and the one probably being more detailed than I ever have been before. And I was already pretty intense, but that helps me so that I never sit down and don't know what's supposed to happen. So if I sit down and need to write, I'm not like, hey, what should I have them do, or where am I going with this? I'm just ready. I'm like, I already know that this is what needs to get accomplished, in this next scene or in this next chapter. So even if I don't feel particularly inspired or I'm not writing well, I still know what needs to happen. So I can put something on the page. HD is nodding, so I'm assuming she's going to tell you something similar.
I agree. I used to be a pantser when I first started writing books, and I produce 4 books a year like clockwork. And plotting will save you from a lot of headaches, and it also can help you make your story more clever. And there are a lot of good setups online. Heather Hildenbrand has a great one that she does with her Connective Collective. It's like an outline of how these are the things that are usually supposed to happen depending on your story structure. And that plotting is definitely key, but also it's the day-to-day grind. The more you do it, the more it gets easier. Any athlete or anything else that you see who does something great and it does it really well, you don't see the day after day and the hours and hours they put in. And that really, just with the novel, every day I try to put some words down. You go through those periods where you don't write for a couple weeks, and I find that my self-worth is directly related to how many words I put down that day, and I feel better. So there's a whole reward system and plotting But yeah, you just get the word. It becomes like, as routine as like you brush your teeth when you wake up in the morning, and then you go and put down. I know that I can produce 500 word in 15 minutes, so I'll set a timer for myself, or I'll sprint against other people online.
That's incredible.
Well, I mean, like, if the plot, like she said, if I go into it knowing this is what I'm supposed to accomplish in this scene, I will say, hey, Siri, set the timer for 15 minutes, and I can average about 500 words in 15 minutes. And that's not like a high amount, because the people I sprint with online, I'm in sprinting groups on Facebook, and they'll say, anybody writing, and we'll give them our word counts and say how many we complete in 15, 20 minutes. And taking small bites out of it is really the best way to keep going.
Sprinting partners are definitely helpful in getting those words out.
And again, this is another thing that I've never heard of that I'm hearing of for the first time. So thank you.
Well, try timing yourself. See how much you can get done in 15 minutes. So go into a scene that you know, and then I actually write on a piece of paper. I put like 0.5K, 1K, 1.5K for 500 intervals, and I cross it out every time I get that. I get to cross off a thing, and I go all the way up to 80 or 90,000, whatever my goal is for that novel. But I'll be like, I'm not going to get up and use the restroom until I finish this 15 minutes worth of words. And so taking those small chunks, and my sprinting partners taught me that for sure. And so now I'll just time myself, and it's like deliberate practice, how if you're trying to, serve a ball or whatever, there's a deliberate move you make. Well, 15 minutes, how much can I produce? How much of this scene can I produce? And so that really helps, because 15 minutes isn't a huge chunk of time. A lot of times we sit down and we're like, oh God, I'm going to be here for hours. This is like trudging through syrup. And really it's like lace your shoes up and sprint, and then you go back. That first draft, just get it down. You cannot edit a blank page.
I really like this challenge. I'm going to start trying to play with that. That sounds like a lot of fun, actually. Because I mean,
set up a reward, yeah.
Yeah, because like I said, I'm a hardcore gamer. So I mean, for me, turning it into a game sounds like a lot of fun.
Definitely challenge yourself. It's really you who you're trying to compete against, and don't get too hung up on if you're hung up on a word. A lot of times we get stopped on like a word. We're like, what am I trying to say here, or something. And just move past it. And when you know that you're like, okay, I have 12 minutes to get, 300 more words in or whatever.
It's word spew. You just get the words on the page, edit it later.
Ooh, now I'm just like, now I'm excited.
Good. Good. That's what we should do for each other. We should be feeding each other.
I like it.
Yeah, cool. I love that. I love hearing from people who produce a lot. It inspires me, because I know that that's really what it takes to make people be able to build their list and to be able to build their readership that's going to follow them, is whenever they can keep giving their readers new stuff.
You totally could, dude. You totally, definitely already have it in you. It's just a matter of like bringing it to the forefront. I didn't always do that. I set a goal, and like I've been able to stick to it. Just take little bites every day. I also have a couple of different group text messages of authors that I tell them my word count. I'm like, wrote 2,500 today's, and then they'll shoot back, wrote 5K. And we do this all the time. Like, it's a constant, it's healthy competition, and those are the people you really should seek out and emulate.
I love that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I really love that. That is so awesome.
Yeah, other people to hold you to your deadline. When you're sharing word counts, and and all your friends are writers, we're all nerds. We all want the same thing. We all feel better about ourselves when we put something down.
It's so true.
Right? I mean, if I wrote 5K that day, I'm like, I am the greatest effort here. Like, I'm pretty much, thank you, everybody. And then if I go 3 months, a month without writing, it's like, I should just go die because I'm worthless. So these people, they help you be accountable, and they also, and knowing how much you can produce in a time frame is important. That's deliberate practice. Yeah. It's deliberate, so time yourself and see your weak points and know how long it takes. So I write down. I'll say 15 minutes, and then I'll have a dash, and I'll be like, okay, I cranked out 487 words or whatever in that time frame, and then I'll go to the next round.
So once you hit the editing stage, how do you guys handle that?
I call her an alpha reader, I guess some people are calling it that now, where it's just a trusted person who is the first set of eyes on anything that I write. And she will not BS with me, and she'll just be like, okay, here's where it's junk, so let's work on that first. However many passes it takes before I feel like this is ready for another set of eyes. And then I do beta readers in phases. I don't give the book to everybody at the same time. So I'll have like my first reader will work on it, maybe a couple drafts, and then I'll have maybe 2 or 3 more, and then I'll continue to work on it. And then, I have just general readers that will go kind of at the end, however many times that takes. So if I'm on the 7th draft and I'm still not feeling like I'm there, then I'll ask around. I'm like, okay, I need to come up with some new readers, And I don't put all my eggs in the beta basket, but a lot of them I do.
Yeah, because it really does help you to flesh out things that are weak, or like you said, get rid of stuff that's like repeated.
The reason I do it with a lot, I'm gonna take one person's word for it. Is if I sent it to 5 people and 3 of them had the same critique, then there's something valid there, and I need to address it. Whereas if it's just one person, then I just kind of go with my gut. If I feel like they're right, I make the adjustment. If I don't, I don't. So that's kind of how I approach it. And then I just, every time I'm redoing a draft, I'm still continually improving the draft as well. So every pass that I make on it, I'm going to be adjusting the verbiage or errors or things like that as I go. And then obviously hire professionals.
Of course.
And then probably the last thing I do is audio edit, where I put the text into a speech reading program so I can hear it aloud. You'd be surprised at how many mistakes you'll hear that no one saw in all the eyes that were on the book. Something that you'll hear aloud that you can't see as you're reading over it. You see what you want to see, kind of thing. I
do read it aloud just to myself a lot of times. To actually just have it sort of automated, that sounds really fun. Yeah,
it's really cool. And like I've said, I've hired professionals to edit my work, and even after them, still found, which no editor is perfect. I mean, I do proofreading on the side, so I can tell you no editor is perfect. But it's still neat to see other mistakes found that so many people missed. It's kind of rewarding.
Yeah. Like I beta read my editor's latest book, and it was fun to. It feels like you're sort of fitting in missing pieces to the puzzle. What about you guys? How do you guys deal with editing? Because editing sucks.
She said a lot of good things. That's true. It's a process. A big thing for me has being able to just that first round of edits that I do myself is really important, and I take my time with it. And my thing instead of the audio is, I always order the proof. Like, that's why these ones look all messed up, because I go through this line by line before an ebook ever comes out. And I highlight and I fold pages and I do stuff. And that, the more you do it, the better you get at it. Having that first draft that I send out be really clean, even before anybody else gets it, is a big thing for me. And when you get to like 15, 20 books, like your eyes are different than they were before when you've only written a few. So what I can do now, I wouldn't have been able to do back then.
What about you, Katie? How do you handle editing?
It's, a layered process, just like they were talking about too. The first draft is always word spew. There's a lot of cleanup to do come that second draft. It's, chapter by chapter, going through and just giving it a good hard eye, cutting things that need to be cut, adding things, fleshing out areas that just quickly brushed over on that first draft. Like ER said, you've got alpha readers and beta readers that you trust to share the Word document with, and they'll come back and say, hey, you do that next, round of edits, and then it's, off to the editor. And my editor actually does a 2-pass approach as well. So it gets hit multiple times before it finally makes it out.
It has to.
Yeah. All right, well, this has been a really, really good show. You guys have had some great feedback, some great information. I'm really happy that you guys came on today and shared time with us. For the audience out there, both ER and HD have offered up a prize, which you'll be able to enter. There'll be a link down below after watching the show. Thank you again, ER and HD. You guys have been so much fun tonight. It's been a pleasure having you guys here with us today. I hope you guys had fun too.
Yes, thank you for having us.
All right, well, that's all we've got then for you this week. We'll talk to you guys next time on Spilling Ink. Thanks for watching.